What's going on, everybody? Happy Friday to you. Welcome to the Undefeated post-weigh-in show. This for UFC Vegas 69. This is the best damn MMA betting show on the net today. We are talking one final look at these fighters. We're going to take every little thing we've talked about throughout the week, all the information we've gone over. We're going to throw it in the cauldron. We're going to stir it up. And then we're just going to sprinkle what we see on the scales today into the mixture. And hopefully we come out with something delicious for us all to chow down on tomorrow at UFC Vegas 69. This show is obviously on Pub Sports Radio. Subscribe if you haven't already and hit the like button for me. The lines are brought to you by Superbook Sports. Let's jump straight on into this bad boy. The first fight of the night, Clayton Carpenter taking on Juan Milo Ronderos. Both men made 125 pounds. Clayton Carpenter broke the cardinal rule, rocking the sunglasses on the scale. You know I hate that, and he's one of these ones that has me a little worried about it. Now, he's got that, wannabe Conor McGregor vibe about him, so maybe he's just doing it to look cool up there on the scales, but he's also one of these big old muscly bastards that sucks themselves way down to their weight class for that size advantage, so I know he had to be feeling it on the scales, and he could be hiding those cracked out eyes with the sunglasses, but he gave a big flex. Physically speaking, he looks solid. We'll see how he rehydrates coming into tomorrow's fights. Now, Juan Milo, apparently the birthday boy, so happy birthday, Mr. Ronderos. Gave a big one-arm flex, pointed. He's looking a little intense, a little bit cocky. I've never really liked this guy. His last showing was not good. He's coming off a layoff. These two size up. Clay's a decent bit larger. This looks like a spot where he's just going to have the physical advantage here. And again, I worry a little bit about this kid's weight cuts, but this is not the opponent that I'm really all that scared of. Now, if Clay were to slow down, that could be a problem. His striking defense has a lot of holes in it. He's got a lot of work to do in that area, but he should just be able to maul and bully Ronderos in this fight. I think he can get the takedowns. I think he can get Ronderos to the mat. I would not be shocked if Clayton Carpenter manages some kind of a submission, because that's always kind of been his thing. He's a very talented grappler, but at the same time, I can also very much see this thing being a survival mode type of fight. Maybe a rejuvenated Ronderos is able to hang in there, and this thing makes it to the judges' scorecards. Frankly, folks, I thought we were going to have like a prop bonanza going on this week. I thought everything was going to be crazy prices, all these unknown fighters, and unfortunately, it's about the exact opposite. I mean, like, you look at the props here for Clayton Carpenter, knockout is plus 195, sub is plus 250, decision is 300. They're like, fuck, we don't know. You figure it out. We'll give you a little bit of extra juice and you can play whatever you feel like. Like, there's no jumping out. There's no submission at 14-1 for Loma Lukbunmi like there was last week. It's a little disappointing because I was hoping to get some crazy price tags on some maybe lesser known outcomes. But yeah, I mean, I guess Clayton Carpenter's probably just a parlay piece at this point. I haven't bet that myself yet. I wanted to see him size up with Ronderos. Now that I have, I feel a little more comfortable about it. He should win this fight. I'm just not sure how he gets it done. AJ Fletcher taking on Thiba Gorimbo. We've got both guys making 171 pounds. AJ Fletcher looks stoic on the scales today. I mean, arms behind his back, didn't say a word, staring straight ahead. Like, he looks like he's got a bit of a chip on his shoulder coming into this fight. Now, Gorimbo, on the other hand, was very excited to make weight, very fast, very twitchy, lots of nervous energy up there, but he also looks like he might have a bit of a chip on his shoulder as well in this spot. This was a very intense stare down. AJ Fletcher looking mean up there. Now, Gorimbo, much taller. We know he's got that tall, lanky build, but AJ is about twice as wide as he is. So this is going to be a really, really interesting fight. Both these guys are primary grapplers. I think AJ Fletcher is probably the cleaner striker, but he's going to be at a significant height and reach disadvantage, which could cause some problems. We'll see how this plays out. My pick is AJ Fletcher by sub. I've seen Thiba Gorimbo stick his neck out there way too often. You can't be comfortable with that. He manages to power his way through it. He's done it before. But when he does this time and time and time again at the UFC level, I think someone's going to snatch it. Is it Fletcher that's going to do it? I don't know. Plus 350 by submission seems like an okay way to go. The under 2.5 at minus 160 might actually be in play here in this spot. But if both these guys are looking to grapple, we'll figure out who's the slicker jiu-jitsu player in a hurry. If they're not looking to grapple, though, this could be a car crash on the feet. Like I said, I think AJ Fletcher probably hits a little harder. His technique's a little cleaner. But you've got Thiba Gorimbo with that height and reach advantage. He'll be able to pick apart AJ from the outside if he chooses to play that style. And he wings massive bombs. Big ol' overhooks. He loads up on them, and he's got a snapping head kick. I mean, Honestly, I was just talking about the Loma Lukbunmi spot. If you were going to take a flyer on Thiba Gorimbo by knockout is plus 1,200. That might be the way that you look. If he just catches Fletcher in one of these wild exchanges like we've seen him do before, I don't think it's very likely. I do think AJ Fletcher probably is able to control it. We're in the small cage as well, so it's not like he's got the room of the UFC's pay-per-view octagon to function. I'm going to pick AJ Fletcher. I think AJ Fletcher by sub is probably the most likely look here for me. Under 2.5. I don't hate it in case Thiba pulls the upset. That's the way I'm looking in that fight. Felipe Lins taking on OSP. We've got Lins coming in light today, 203.5. OSP made 206. Now, I'll be honest, Felipe Lins looked absolutely shredded on the scales today. Dude was jacked, in good shape, jogging off, moving well. OSP looks like he lost a little bit of his muscle, unfortunately. I was not inspired by OSP on the scales this morning. He looked like a bag of milk. Like, he definitely is not as motivated as he used to be, and I personally look into these things. I know a lot of people think that the weigh-ins are just kind of whatever. I like to look into it. I like to dig a little deeper into it. I'm a little concerned. The one bet that I made on this entire card was OSP at plus 185. That line has moved back up to plus 190, unfortunately. I thought that the sharps were coming in my direction. It got all the way down to plus 175 at one point, but it's since trended back up the opposite way. I'm a little worried about my guy OSP. OSP 1 year ago smokes Felipe Lins. OSP at 80% probably beats Felipe Lins. It's just a matter of how far gone is OSP and is he just showing up for a paycheck. If he's just showing up for a paycheck and he's completely phoned it in, then yeah, Felipe Lins is probably going to fuck him up. But if he's not, if he's at all still in there, you know, even an older OSP should still beat this man. Lins doesn't have a chin. He will have a hand speed advantage. But I don't know if he's even got a cardio or a wrestling advantage. I think this fight looks like a minus 110 about 2 minutes into the fight. So holding my nose, it doesn't feel good. I swore off betting these aging, close to retirement type fighters last year because they cost me so much damn money. I can't turn away this opportunity to fade Felipe Lins. He's just on my fade list 1,000%, and the plus number was too much. I got to ride with OSP, but frankly, I don't like it. Next up, we've got Ashkabob taking on Emmers. Ashkabob made 146, Emmers 145, and Ashkabob was doing the crazy eyes thing. He's up there, he's up there doing this thing. He looked good, though. He was shredded. This is the guy that we haven't seen, at all for 3 straight years. He looked fantastic coming into this fight. Jamal Emmers shredded as well. I mean, this is another one of these tall, lanky figure type of guys, so just takes everything they got to get down to this weight class. Good flex from Emmers. Emmers is slightly taller. Now, he is always the taller fighter, but it's not by a lot this time. Like, this is one of those ones where he finally found a guy who can kind of match his height and reach. And honestly, Ashkabob's got a big damn head. You talk about these guys being able to withstand punishment, not get knocked out. That makes a freaking difference. Ashkabob's got a huge noggin on him. Now, he's the minus 150 favorite coming in. I know a lot of people are taking the plunge on Jamal Emmers. He got down to like plus 110, but at Superbook Sports, he's hanging tight at plus 130. That's one of those things where, for me, I got to wonder if someone's dangling a little bait out there. Maybe someone knows something that we don't. I can't get there with Emmers. I refuse to bet him ever again because of his low fight IQ. He could be winning a fight by a mile and then just give it away. So I'm never going to put my money on Jamal Emmers ever again. I do lean to Ashkabob, even though there's a lot of unknowns. I feel like this is a guy the UFC has been trying to get here for a long time. And giving him this fight just seems like they're really giving him an opportunity to shine in his UFC debut. Too many questions, too long of a layoff. I'm not betting it, but the pick is going to be Ashkabob. Next up, we got Mayra Bueno Silva taking on Lena Landsberg. 136 for Silva, 135.5 for Landsberg. No issues for either women. They both look fine on the scales today. This was a very respectful face-off and stare-down. Silva is the biggest favorite on the card, and the only way she pays that price tag off is if they get into a scramble and she snatches up another first-round armbar. I don't necessarily see that happening. I can see these two getting into a slugfest. I can see, frankly, either of them knocking the other one out because Lena Landsberg just refuses to go away, and we have seen that Silva is another low fight IQ candidate. She's another type of fighter that will let the fight get out of control and get away from her just by making poor decisions in there. Now, Lena Landsberg is turning 41 years old very soon, so she is getting a bit up there. If you wanted to take a flyer on Silva and you think she's capable of finishing, the plus 600 by knockout is a decent price tag. because she's really supposed to get in there and beat the brakes off of Lena Landsberg in this fight. If she is showing improvements the way a young fighter of her stature should, then she probably is capable of doing this. But again, I just can't find a way to trust Mayra Bueno Silva here in this spot. I wouldn't be shocked if she makes it closer than it should be. I wouldn't be surprised if it goes all 15 minutes and Lena Landsberg makes a case for herself in that third round, because we have seen that happen before. She's a tough old lady, and she is not going anywhere. Evan Elder taking on Nazim Sadikov. This is this week's Twitter civil war. Everybody all over this fight. Evan Elder, both guys made 155.5 actually, but Evan was shredded on the scales today. Looked fantastic. I mean, he looked really, really great back at his normal weight class. Sadikov looked fantastic as well. He gave a solid flex. This guy's looking good. This was a good face-off. They size up well. Sadikov is slightly larger. And I checked in with my guy Andrew from Superbook Sports. He let me know where the action is on this card. And very much like, most of us looking at this one, it's hot garbage. So there's not a whole lot of sharp betting action on this card. But they are getting pounded hand over fist on Sadikov. The book absolutely needs Evan Elder here in this spot. And it is a bit crazy because this was a very closely lined fight, but it's been driven up by the bettors. Everybody just pouring in on the same side. I looked at this thing and I also picked Nazim, but I said I refuse to lay that price tag on him. The wider this line gets, the more I want to look the other way, because at a certain point there is a threshold where you go, this is a minus 110 fight, and I'm getting plus 170 on that coin flip. I might have to plug my nose and take the plunge on Evan Elder. He's been a finisher at his home weight class. He's got a very strong body kick. He's got good, solid grappling. We saw how tough he was in his last fight. Short notice, up a weight class. Was able to survive some very bad positions. And Nazim Sadikov is a guy that really is still untested at the UFC level. So it's also the Dana White Contender Series fade spot, folks. If the fighter with the UFC caliber experience is a dog, you're supposed to blindly play that spot because the overhyped Dana White's Contender Series fighter is the one who's getting the bad price tag. So yeah, all this lines up to anything. It's dog or pass for me. Like, if you're giving me a coin flip, if you're giving me minus 110, I am picking Nazim Sadikov. I am not laying 2-1 on him. That's all it comes down to. Nothing surprising except that both guys were fantastic at the weigh-ins today. Alexander Hernandez taking on Jim Miller. Hernandez 156, Jim Miller 155.5. Alexander Hernandez looks much, much healthier up at 155. Gave a big flex. You could tell he was kind of having a little bit of fun up there, smiling. It's good to see him in a little bit of a better mood. Jim Miller, he looked a bit disheveled, if I'm being honest with you. Now, he's getting old. Like, I can't knock the guy too much, but he does look like they just found him on the side of the street and threw him in there for face-offs, because he looks a little scrawny. His beard looks a little roughed up. Like, poor Jim Miller. Miller is somehow slightly bigger than Alexander Hernandez, and that's concerning to me. This is a spot where a few of the people who I respect most in the betting community are actually on Jim Miller. Now, I have passed to this point on this fight. I said I'm picking Alexander Hernandez. I can see him going to the wrestling because Jim Miller does accept back bottom, and when he goes off of his back, we've seen Alexander Hernandez has good enough top pressure, good enough submission defense. He can stay safe, and he can do whatever he needs to do to get through this fight. But Jim Miller's actually slightly larger than him. I thought Alexander was going to be a bit of the bully here. I thought he was going to have the larger frame. I thought he was going to have more of that going on. Now, frankly, he is still the much younger fighter. He's probably still the more explosive fighter. But this late career resurgence from Jim Miller, where he's been able to drag guys into the second round and then hurt them once he gets them there, that's exactly what you have to do to Alexander Hernandez. If he can defend a takedown or two, and that's kind of the problem here, if Jim doesn't really defend takedowns, if he can defend a takedown or two and make Hernandez work, or even if he does get on his back, if he can scramble and squirm and make Alexander Hernandez work instead of just letting him rest and sit on top of him, then Jim Miller probably does have a very live chance here. And not to mention, he's always live against anybody in round one. Hernandez is just not the same guy when he gets tired. The later this fight goes, the more it favors Jim Miller. This might be a live bet spot for me. It might be another spot where once you see, exactly like Alexander Hernandez's last fight, I think I said this, is that if you see him not get the round one KO, if you see him taking deep breaths, if you can't quite get Jim out of there, then you live bet Jim Miller after round one. That's probably the move. I expect Alexander Hernandez probably can get the early KO over an elderly Jim Miller, but we'll find out. We'll find out on Saturday. I don't blame anybody trying to fade Hernandez one last time because the kid could just be a fraud at the UFC level at this point. Will Knight taking on Marcin Prachnio. My guy Will Knight came in at 206, and he is Oh my God. Thick Willie baby. Holy shit, my dude. Like, I don't know how he does it. I have no idea. But he made weight. You know, a lot of people were concerned he wasn't going to do it coming off that, you know, miss he had last time. But he had plenty of time to get ready for this one. He's good to go. Marcin Prachnio also gave a big flex. This is a big dude. Like, Marcin's arms always impress me. I forget how thick he is when he gets up there on the scale. Much taller, obviously, is Marcin Prachnio. He leaned in close. This was a very intense stare down. You've got Will Knight, a minus 125 favorite, plus 105 on Marcin Prachnio. This is another one that's been kind of one-way traffic. You know, everybody online is calling for the Will Knight KO. I agree. That's exactly what I see happening because Marcin Prachnio doesn't have any kind of a chin on him whatsoever. You can get Will Knight by knockout, plus 210 if that's the way you want to look. I might play the under 2.5 here at minus 155. I do think Will Knight wins. I do think Will Knight wins by knockout, but we've also seen Marcin Prachnio's leg kicks are just vicious, and when you don't check those things, he can chop you down in 4 or 5 kicks. And that's something I think Will Knight might have a problem with. If Marcin Prachnio doesn't come in and cause a car crash, if he keeps the distance, makes Will Knight chase him, Will's going to slow down, he's going to tire out, he's going to chase him around the octagon, and if he just gets beaten up with leg, body, and head kicks that whole time, Marcin Prachnio can really kind of pick his moment to go ahead and get a finish in this spot, and the TKO is going to be there. I'm rooting my ass off for Will Knight. I think he's got every tool in the box to go ahead and get this win. Violence, I think, might be the better bet, but that plus 210 on Will Knight by KO, definitely tempting. Definitely tempting. Next up, Josh Parisian taking on Jamal Pogues. We've got Parisian 266 tipping the scales. Jamal Pogues 249 and a half. You know, big old flabby boy Josh Parisian. Nothing new, nothing different there. Jamal Pogues, though, obviously looks like he really did work and he really did put some muscle on. He looks a lot more filled out coming into this fight. Not nearly as much extra flab on him as we saw him on the Contender Series. But when they face off, this was my big thing. Everybody out there is just all ready to parlay Jamal Pogues, talking Jamal Pogues by knockout. Folks, he's a 205er. Like, you can see it when these two face off. He is the much, much smaller man. He is not a heavyweight. He's playing at 265. He belongs at 205. And you gotta wonder what this, you know, speedy, light jab machine is going to be able to do with a bunch of extra muscle on him. So I'm not convinced that Jamal Pogues is UFC caliber or worthy to begin with in this spot. He's at a significant size disadvantage, and you've got Josh Parisian, who's been talking about working on his counter wrestling. This is another dogger pass spot for me. I will not lay this kind of a price tag on Jamal Pogues when he's shown me no UFC caliber skills whatsoever. He jabbed a 170-pound fighter to death on Dana White's Contender Series. Didn't finish him, didn't rock him, didn't hurt him, didn't take him down, jabbed him to death for 15 minutes, and looked like he was heaving after about the first 6. Now he's got a bunch of extra weight on him, and he's taking on a real 265-pound fighter. I'm not trusting him at minus 250. Good luck if you're parlaying Jamal Pogues. I wouldn't. Again, if anything, it's a dogger pass on Josh Parisian, somebody who we know actually is more than capable of going late in a fight. And if Josh Parisian gets on top of this man at any point in time, it's lights out. Like, he's not overly impressive on the feet. He's not a great wrestler. But if you end up in a scramble, if you end up against the fence, or if you fail on a takedown and you end up with Josh Parisian on top of you, you're practically dead. The inside the distance, the knockout, the sub, those are all totally live for Josh Parisian. Maybe we look at the late round props, Josh Parisian in round 3 for a sprinkle or some shit like that. You can get Parisian by TKO at plus 600. I think that might be something that's live in this spot if he gets on top of his opponent. Frankly, this is probably a sloppy heavyweight over bad decision type of fight. The total's 2.5. I don't want to lay over 2.5. We could talk if it was 1.5. So we're probably looking at a decision. I'm okay with that, but I wouldn't be shocked at all if Josh Parisian pulls off this upset. He is not good. Let me be clear about that. Josh Parisian is not a good fighter, but I'm not convinced his opponent even belongs in the UFC, much less being a good fighter. Co-main event, Zach Pauga taking on Jordan Wright. Zach made 205.5. Jordan Wright 204. Zach looked nice and lean, coming down from heavyweight. He took all that extra flab off of him. He looked real slim down. He looked fantastic. Now, Jordan Wright looked thick and healthy at 205. Like, this is a guy, it's so weird. He's got a huge frame. He's got a big body on him, but he's got this long, skinny neck that makes him look way taller than he probably should be, and he's got a huge Well, I say huge. He's actually got like a little head. No wonder he gets knocked out all the time. Like, I'm sorry. He doesn't have great striking defense, and he's got a baby little head on top of a long, skinny neck. Yeah, probably pretty easy to knock out. You need to have that thick neck to be able to defend that. These guys size up really well. Wright, in fact, might have a slight height advantage in this spot, which is interesting considering Zach is coming down, Wright is going up. For Wright to still have a slight size advantage is very intriguing. This is a fight that I just am so stuck on. I can't play Jordan Wright because of his weakness, the chin. We have a problem. I can't really play Zach because he's a little low volume for me. We're not sure if he can wrestle for 15 straight minutes or even if he will or attempt to. And if Jordan Wright does go ahead and use his offensive wrestling, his grappling, something we've seen work before, this thing could go over 1.5 at plus 155. I mean, you're getting Zach Pauga by knockout at minus 131 on Superbook Sports. That really does seem like the most likely outcome for this fight is eventually Zach finds the chin of Jordan Wright, whether it's the first round or the third round. He's eventually going to tag him with something that Jordan Wright can't quite handle. But Jordan Wright up at 205, you got to wonder if maybe he's a little more durable. Jordan Wright up at 205, you got to wonder if maybe the gas tank is just a little bit better. I don't know. This is one where I want nothing to do with it. You are steering straight into the variance betting on a fight like this, and God bless you if that's the route that you want to go. For me, though, I'm probably going to stay away. I'm going to pick Zach. I'm going to pick Zach by knockout. I don't think I'm betting this one. Main event time, Jéssica Andrade taking on Erin Blanchfield. Andrade is 124. Blanchfield came in 125.5. Nice little confident smirk on Jéssica Andrade. She feels so good about herself right now. Very relaxed, solid, good one-arm flex. First to the scale for Erin Blanchfield, making a statement today. Another very casual smile, looking good. No problems with her for the weight cut either. Both women stepped in immediately. Like, this is an intense face-off with two women that are both mean, that are both angry, that are both trying to prove themselves as being the next thing in the division. I love this fight so much. Now, it's been all Blanchfield money, and that's the one sharp action that I can say happened with Superbook Sports. The one person that they would qualify as a sharp that bet this weekend came in on Blanchfield early. She's now down to plus 115 on the site, and I see a lot of people, again, a lot of people that I really respect in the betting community that are on Erin Blanchfield here in this spot. But I lean to Jéssica Andrade. The 23 years old for Erin, I can't get my brain around. So with these young fighters, there's a certain threshold where the age becomes a huge benefit for them. They're younger than their opponents. They're less damaged than their opponents. They're faster. They're hungrier. You want to be young in the fight game. But when you're at that 20, 21, 22, 23, you're not full grown yet. You haven't had the experience yet. You haven't faced that adversity yet. That's where it becomes a bit of a detriment that you're the younger fighter, and I think that's what we have in this spot. I don't want to doubt Erin Blanchfield. She's incredible. I do think she'll be a future title contender and potentially title holder in the UFC. I'm just not sure she's ready for Andrade today, and that's the problem, is we have to deal with Andrade today. Now, the other thing is, Andrade is not nearly as small as I thought she'd be. I thought Blanchfield, based on the UFC stat numbers, was going to be another inch or two taller than her when they faced off. The size up was pretty similar. So Jéssica Andrade, we know she's a decent wrestler. We know she's a decent grappler. If Erin Blanchfield cannot duplicate what Valentina Shevchenko did, I think she's going to have a rough night on the feet. So for me, it's favored or pass. I have not bet it yet. I wouldn't be surprised if Andrade goes out there and rips her to the body and nukes her with one, and she takes a veteran lesson for the first time in the UFC. Now, I also wouldn't be surprised at all if Erin is just a mean... Yeah, never mind. I'm not going to say that. If she's just mean and manages to throw Jéssica Andrade around the cage, get her down, crucifix her, do what she's always done to everybody, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be surprised one bit. But I cannot get the JJ fight out of my head. The fact that pillow-fisted JJ was able to bop Erin Blanchfield up, defend the takedown, shove her off, and keep her at distance, and really only gave up the submission because of a slip, because of a mistake, because she left her neck out there for a split second. Like, I can't get my brain around the fact that that was this close to derailing Erin Blanchfield. And Jéssica Andrade is far more talented than JJ. She's faster, she hits harder, she's meaner, she's got champion back class. I just can't do it. So for me, it's favor to pass. At this point, the only bet that I have, folks, is OSP at plus 185. It's a one-unit shot. It's not a big bet. I'm not doubling down. I'm not laying the hammer, nothing like that. And frankly, the rest of the card is still kind of up in the air for me. The real spots I'm looking at, I'm tempted on Andrade. I am tempted on Josh Parisian, which, dear God, hold your nose there. I am tempted on the under 2.5 for William Knight. I'm tempted on Jim Miller. Honestly, at this point, I'm a little tempted on Jim Miller, even though I've been saying Alexander Hernandez all week. Seeing that size matchup really has put some doubt into my heart. And as much as I want to say I'm tempted on Ashkabob, I don't think I really am tempted to make a bet. The one thing I might do, though, is some kind of a chalky parlay with like Clayton and AJ. That's something that I think I could get to. And then Evan Elder for the Dana White Contender Series fade is the other spot that I might look at. This is the kind of chaotic card where these favorites are completely untrustworthy. We don't see a lot of dogs come through in the UFC lately. This might be the one where we finally get some dog prices home. Good luck tomorrow, folks. Tread lightly. Be careful. There's some big, awesome UFC cards right around the corner. Keep some bullets in the clip for when we have a confident spot. But good luck in your degeneracy. You know I love it. You know I love you for sprinkling on this kind of a chaotic card. I hope you guys kick some ass. Let's make some money, and make sure you check out the Pub Sports Radio watch along. Make sure you also enter in Pub Sports Radio's free pick'em contest over on pubsportsradio.com. Your boy just tied Boston Nick MMA for two-time champ. We give out free cash prizes if you take that bad boy down, but you gotta beat me. Come get it. Come get it. You have a great day. Let's roll.